Welcome to Voices of Genius. I'm excited today and very curious to be here with Denise Muller, who has broken boundaries of human limitations time and time again over the course of her life. In a moment, we're going to hear from Denise about her story and the secrets to her genius. You will learn about how she did the seemingly impossible. And recently, we celebrated our 246th Independence Day here in the United States. And of course, that was freedom from the oppression of the British Empire. I've thought over the years quite a bit about freedom, specifically in the context of the human dependency of our people, to need things outside of themselves. And I wanted to break away from the mindset of the norms of old. I wanted to shed those limiting beliefs that I had. And some of those beliefs said, my gosh, I couldn't do something. I was not worthy of something. Or even, oh, that's impossible. I shouldn't even consider it. And if we think about it, if we're bound, if we're dependent upon a system or a culture, or, well, you need somebody or you need someone other than, just trying to be something other than who you are and what you're here to do, don't we become beholden to our limited potential? So today, I want to explore how we can break those limitations of who maybe you think you are. I want to tap into, with Denise today, your limitless potential. And kind of go even a little deeper into this. How do we go from dependence, say, on society or our culture or our economics and all these things? How do we go to independence? How do we go to freedom and liberation from our limitations, our belief systems? And how do we even go further into interdependence? How do we cooperate? How do we collaborate? How do we work in teams? And I would well imagine Denise is going to share with us how she worked a bit with her team and how the accomplishments that she has achieved happened not only because of her inner discipline and inner independence, but her inner intradependence with others. So today we get to learn about how we can do things that are seemingly impossible, unimaginable, or even as a client of mine says, do the unthinkable. So no better to find out from someone who has done this time and time again. Denise Muller is a 2-time Guinness World Book record holder. Get a load of this, folks. 183.9 miles on a bicycle on the land. What I love about this, Denise, is that it beat a 23-year record held by a man, which is so awesome. You're also accomplished many, many other things, including just riding a bike on your own. And in terms of the record there, and that's 70.6 miles per hour. I can't even imagine what kind of hill or slope you had to do that with. So we'll find out more about that. You're also a 15-time national cycle champion in the areas of mountain biking, road biking, Vendor Dome, an Iron Woman and you completed half Iron women event as well. So, I can't even imagine that. So that's fathomable. And of course, you have many, many other accomplishments and feats that we get to explore, and including 9 marathons on 4 different continents, including one on Antarctica. Now, I can't even imagine how you run a marathon on the ice. I mean, my goodness, and under those conditions. And I also love that you're a serial and successful entrepreneur. And I think that just says so much about how well-rounded your life has been, and the mother of 3 sons, grown sons now. And I don't know, maybe you're a grandmother as well. And so how exciting. So welcome, Denise. We're so excited to have you here today.
Oh my gosh. Thank you so very much. After that, I think I need to put my helmet back on to prevent my head from swelling. No.
Well, let's dive in here a little bit. And
right.
By any measure, you're an extraordinary achiever. And I'd like to share, if you could, with our audience, just kind of get down in there. What makes you tick? And, where did this story of Denise Muller begin? And a little bit how you got here. Maybe share with us a bit on that journey for yourself.
Sure. And I think a little bit has to do with the fact of it's just inert of wanting to always set a goal and sort of like the carrot on the stick and have it out there, but also the beauty of having been raised by parents who also broke boundaries themselves and gave me that the thinking of that I can do whatever I want to do. My father was very accomplished. He jogged, and then he got into cycling, and has accomplished a number of things, including riding his bicycle around the outer perimeter of the United States, 12,100 miles in 9.5 months, self-contained at the age of 70. And my mom raced powder puff demolition derby cars back in the 1960s, and then jumped out of an airplane on her 80th birthday for the first time. So I say that to just give the mentality of my genealogy when it came to the thought process for how I was raised. I was also brought up in a security business, which is I'm 2nd generation owner of the family business. And it's a security guard business, and security alarm system business, which has generally been male driven within the industry. And so it never caused me to think I had to prove anything whatsoever. I just did what I did because somebody needed to do it. And so I was never limited by being a female. I was never limited by you should or shouldn't do this. In fact, it was absolutely the opposite of you can do anything you want to do. And I was given those examples by my parents. And then, just growing up, I was always given opportunities to follow whatever was presented in front of me that I enjoyed to do. And that came at 14 years old on a bicycle. Went out and my dad and I decided to do a 100-mile bicycle ride. So again, we don't do things in a little way. We sort of just go to the very extreme. And they had a flyer about a bicycle ride for 100 miles coming up for the charity. And my dad and I decided to train for it. It set everything else in motion, down to the fact that I met my coach, John Howard, in 1987, that same exact year. He said, you need to get this girl into bike racing, won my first race. So that was the precipice of my accomplishments within the cycling arena. And I was able to race for 5 years. I did wonderful. I had the 13 national championships, the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and a 12th at World Championships. I learned to love downhill mountain bike racing. So that gives you a little idea of what's up here in my head when it comes to the wild and crazy nature of what I do. And so I did that up until I was 19, and I just hung it up and entered the family business. It was a myriad of different issues that were going on. But, I sort of just, did a full 90-degree turn here in what I was doing, entered the family business and had 3 children, did the career, and had some other people who inspired me to be able to get back into setting goals, which then led to what I did as far as the land speed record. But that gives you a little bit to answer the one question, which is a little bit of the background. It's the family and the mentality and the support system that I definitely had to be able to get into bicycle racing and have that foundation when I was a teenager.
Yeah, well, thank you for that. And I've always kind of thought, well, there is the DNA component in one sense, but some of us may be in those environments, and it sounds like you were blessed to have the mother and the father and the family unit that you have. But notwithstanding that, they don't take the leap. They don't go to the outer edges of their own being, so to speak, their own thoughts. So I like to let's just go a little bit deeper into, maybe let's take a look at that moment in 2018 when you broke the land speed record. And, how do you prepare for that how do you prepare for this? Obviously you're preparing in terms of the bike and the team and the equipment and all that's critical, but what's going on for you in your own mindset of preparation? What was happening at that time? Or how do you prepare for these momentous, perhaps seemingly impossible accomplishments?
Very, very excellent question, because there is so much more than the physical preparation. This record I've always said it was half physical capabilities and the other half was a little bit of the crazy Evel Knievel-ish attitude. Right. And with that, you have to, there's certain inherent qualities of wanting to achieve, being the adrenaline junkie, as they would say. However, there's also the preparation. And I did a lot of mental preparation because I didn't want to have fear to be in my head. I'm a firm believer of what you think about, you bring about, law of attraction, and you want to focus on the positive, and you want to be able to deal with whatever negative may come your way and have a solution for it so that it doesn't get in and take hold and grow roots, which would be disastrous. Could actually be deadly in this situation for my record. So with that, I did hypnotherapy. I did neurofeedback training. I did visualization. I had a CD created custom for me that I listened to for the first 90 minutes after I fell asleep while my brain's in the theta state to have positive reinforcement messages. So a lot of the mental preparation for this was so very important. Plus the surrounding myself with people who knew that I could do this, that believed in me, because that's your support system. You talked about teamwork just a little bit ago, and it is very important to surround yourself with the positive people who are going to help along the way. I did not need to have people who were going to be afraid and have that energy of negativity or the energy of fear. And very fortunately, it was such a positive stepstone. Each stepstone to get to the result ended up being such a beautiful progress, and it all worked out correctly. I'm not saying that it didn't. I don't believe there is perfection. I think there's perfection for what's necessary, but a lot of times you talk about trying to achieve perfection. Nah, I had a crash in 2017, broke my shoulder blade. I had other things that went on in 2017 that could have derailed everything, but I just kept moving forward, and everyone around me also supported that. And so that's part of the story, is the things that don't go right. But when you want it to all go right and be in 100% in the positive moment is when you're actually doing the record, because one error could be, well, that could be the end at that speed. So I was every single run that I had done leading up to there, I had always had positive experiences. I had nothing that sort of got in and created a negative or a fearful situation until that very last run. And I didn't know I had actually done the record because I can't look down at my own speedometer for reference. It was not official speed on my speedometer, but at least it would give me a reference. There was just we were going so fast, I couldn't even look down and look back up. An entire football field would have gone by in distance. And so with that, there was a few very close calls because the speed was so much greater than my prior runs. And so I got to the end of that. It was the very first time I actually felt a little bit of that fear. And I was actually concerned if I had to do another run, that all of a sudden it had, niggled into my mind, that fear. And thank God I had done the record, so I didn't have to go back out there. But I think that's the big important element, is the mental preparation above and beyond physical. There are so many athletes out there that physically could do what I did, but you have that other half, which is the mental and the desire and the ability within your mind to be able to do it.
Well, it's so important that we're hearing this, because I think many of us feel limited in our potential. And when you kind of were thinking about going through your mental preparation and your practices, the hippotherapy, the stillness, whatever those steps were for you, were there moments where you just said, well, where am I really stepping? What is this place? It's kind of an unknown world, right? It's like, we don't know until we go there, were you having thoughts like, oh, wait a second, where is this really leading me to? I mean, because isn't this kind of edge thinking? It's kind of course it's dangerous, but it is edge and it is boundary. And there must have been moments where you're like, oh, asking those kind of questions in your preparation, because you certainly didn't want to think them or ask them in the performance, right?
Yes. And another excellent view, because a lot of very great questions that are a lot of times I have not been asked. And to give a little bit of a background, I tend to be the type of person to where if somebody else has done something before me, I know I'm able to do it. I would have a lot more challenge to be the first person to ever do land speed record. That was a little bit out there, but I know that my coach had done it. I know that Fred Rumpelberg had done it. I know that several people before them have done it. So in a sense, I flip a switch in my mind and go, if they can do it, I can do it. And I think that just comes from my confidence on how I was raised. But that's also, once I compartmentalize that with, I know I can do it, that thought process gets moved aside. And it's already a known that it's capable of being done. However, I know I'm pushing the limit to another level, and I realize that, and I'm always going to be cognizant of potential for things to not go right. I'm going to be realistic, and I will always be conscious of, if something doesn't look right, I'm going to raise the concern. But nothing ever did in this. So I am 100% dead set on the goal. I will be logical and look at reality, but nothing in this particular one came up as being problematic compared to other record holders and what they'd done. So for me, that's how I just tunnel vision onto the goal. If the problem isn't there, it's out of my mind, and all I am focused on is continuation to the goal. There, of course, were challenges along the way, but nothing that couldn't be overcame. And again, the group of people that I had around me, I trusted in the people that I had to do their elements of the vehicle, the bike, all the different elements that I didn't concern myself with, because I released that to the experts. I didn't need to hyper or micromanage. How is the bicycle being built? How are you doing that? What screw are you using? How tight are you tightening it? I was able to release that and give that to those that are experts around me, because I completely trusted them and their capabilities and their desire to keep me safe.
Well, there was one focus. You were singularly focused,
yes.
Like being you and what you're there to do. And of course, that brings up issues of trusting your team, knowing that you are surrounded by competence. And, when I think about what some of the things you've accomplished in this particular accomplishment, Denise, I think about, I'm a father. I have 3 daughters and I have 6 granddaughters. And there came a point in my life where, well, maybe I don't want to be doing anything that maybe is a little more extreme or a little more dangerous. Of course, that fell away a little bit sometimes because I like a little bit of that kind of action, so to speak, or that kind of excitement. And fortunately, not so much anymore at 61. But, as a mother, what were your thoughts or feelings around that? Because, of course, you have entered into this because you could die. You must know that, right?
Yeah.
That's just a fact. And so what were you feeling around that part of your, let's just call it mortality?
Yes. Another amazing, excellent, insightful question. And the thing is I'm going to try and portray this the best I can without it seeming selfish, because some may see it as such. But for me, I know that I've raised my children to be sufficient in society, and they can go on if something were to happen to me. And I don't want to limit my own choices in my own life because of fear of them not surviving without me. Because the reality is I've done my job. I've done my raising of them. My youngest was 16 years old in 2016 when I set the first land speed record and with the women's record. And I was quite confident if anything did happen to me, they would be fine. And I think that's important to always have a balance between living your own life and achieving your own goals, but yet giving that as an example for your own children. Because the same thing is I wouldn't want them to limit their choices in life based on other people. And that's where that balance is. So if anything, I've given them an example of how to live their life to the fullest, because that's what I've chosen to do as a mother, as a business owner, as a friend, as anything. I'm still going to go after the dreams that I have and not allow those to be limited by, for lack of a better word, fear of leaving somebody without me. So I think that's the best example I can give to them to live their life to the fullest also.
Well, that's an excellent example. And you are an excellent example. And I'm so with you on that. I mean, what is more important than to be authentic, to be true to your heart, your mind, your soul, your body's journey. And I think many often decide, well, that's too selfish, like you mentioned. Many decide that, no, I need to be caretaking others in the world. Not to say there's anything wrong with taking care of others, but when we subordinate or subjugate what's true and alive within us, whether it's in our bones, in our DNA, in our heart, in our mind, and just in our flow state that we want to come to, that is a disservice. So I appreciate some really important wisdom for all of us, and know that I truly am with you and aligned with that as a place to as a model, a champion, a model of a champion, a model of a mother, a model of truth out there that I think, well, I just say so many are looking for today. Mm-hmm. So, thank you for that. Thank you for sharing that. And
thank you.
You're welcome. I was recently, just a few weeks ago, meaning recently, I was trekking. And I went trekking in the Andean mountains in Peru, in the Peruvian mountains, and up at 13, 14, 15,000 feet. Oof. And it was interesting because I was just challenged in every single way. And of course, I prepared. I live here in Santa Barbara at sea level. That doesn't really mean much in terms of being physically compared, because unless you're training at altitude, it's a whole nother thing, right? Because So we prepare in the circumstances that are necessitate a successful outcome.
Yes.
And but I didn't have the luxury of preparing to train at higher altitudes, and knowing that it was 5 days. It was epic in its own way, and it tested me in its own way. And I'm curious about you as a high performance athlete in your own way. But in the context of my particular journey, what I found, Denise, was it tested my body. It tested me physically. It tested me emotionally, right? It tested me in my heart. It tested me in my mind. It tested me spiritually, for that matter. And what I found, what it all came down to, was the heart. And if my heart was there, I was there. And it gave me a firm knowing that if we're in the heart, either in our own personal lives or we're in the heart together, there's nothing impossible. We can do what we need to do. And of course, I'm sharing that a bit because these are challenging times for this planet. These are challenging times for many. And I'm asking you this question because you have the heart of a champion. Tell us a little bit about your heart as a champion, and what role has that played in your life as a mother, as a champion, as an athlete, and as an entrepreneur?
Yes, the heart of a champion. Thank you very much for that. I think one thing I want to always share is, because a lot of times people will put people on pedestals and think that they don't have some of the challenges that everyday people have. And the irony is, I love hearing the heart of a champion, because that is the essence of what I have, because I'm very driven. I love setting goals. I love accomplishing them. I've been granted with a body that has the ability to train to a level, a mind that has the ability to look and decide I'm going to do something, and I just go all in for it. But I also have the everyday challenges. I have the show up at a start line of a bicycle race and thinking that I'm not there, I shouldn't be there, I'm not fast enough, that that person's going to beat me, or how am I going to stay out there? Am I going to drop out? Things that a lot of people otherwise do have those thoughts, and they think that sometimes somebody at a certain level doesn't have that. And it's actually, the reality is there's such a common thread between all of us and the challenges that happen up here and how we think, but to follow our heart and to just go and put it into perspective and go, you know what? I've decided I'm going to do this. And this is my thought process. It works for me because everyone's a little bit different, but I've decided to do this. I am going for it. I am not going to step back. And you know what? If I have to, for any reason, I'll know at that time, and I will be okay with it, because I know I will have done everything I'm capable of doing. Because most of the time that's all occurring before I start something. But once I'm on the journey, my dedication is there. And then all of a sudden, all those other little thoughts are going away, because I'm having a blast. I'm accomplishing. I'm giving myself kudos for where I've gone within that trek at that moment. And I'm giving myself the positive energy moving forward to accomplish the goal. I'm extremely driven. That is for sure. I believe in vision boards, and I have a gratitude board, which reinforces my vision board. So I also use a lot of reinforcement to remind me of what I have accomplished. Because a lot of times we're always looking forward and so hard on ourselves of trying to accomplish something that we may fall a little short of, but we don't realize how far we've come. And so I like I said, I have this gratitude board. So when I have a big goal, it's on my vision board. And once it's reached, it gets moved over to the gratitude board to reinforce the next goal on my vision board. That, look, I did accomplish it. It sat here in front of my face for an entire year, and now I've accomplished it. What's up next? And so I think that's a lot of what keeps me moving forward, is constantly having those goals. And the heart of a champion, I think, is within every single one of us. And it's described in a very different way. I'm being interviewed right now in regards to my land speed record, which I am the top of the world. So there's no other comparisons, because I've outdone everybody else that's accomplished or tried this and things of that nature. So of course I'm going to be viewed on the pedestal for that. But that's because that's where my mindset is. That's because that's where my desires were. That's what I set as goals. And I worked very hard to do it. And I did accomplish it. But everybody else has all their different goals. And I think the heart of a champion is in absolutely every single person. It's the fact of believing in themselves, surrounding themselves with positive people around them, and then appreciating where they've come from, because we've all started at different starting lines. And I think that's the beauty is, we put too much up there on people who have accomplished certain things. And I don't want people to feel less than because of that. But what made me accomplish what I did was who I was and the drive that I had. And that's the one thing I always want to inspire with people, is to take their inner drive and go for it. Don't let negative thoughts, don't let people telling you, ooh, gosh, why would you do that? You need to get away from the people who are negative. So that's the biggest thing, is just go for it. And you never know. I mean, I set out to do a marathon, and it ended up I could connect all the dots doing my land speed record. I didn't start out saying I'm going to do a land speed record. So I started being inspired by 3 ladies in the gym, and you would never believe that it was one little inspiration here that led to this, to this, to this. And that's the thing, is I'd love to see everybody doing is take one step and then keep moving forward.
Well, that most certainly is the heart of a champion. And, really thank you for that, because what, I heard and what I felt from you, Denise, while you were sharing that, is kind of a whole view of the heart of a champion. In other words, we have our goals, we have our drive, we have the things that create the experience that we go after, that we dream about, that we believe in. We believe in ourselves. We prepare. And at the same time, you've also included what I think is really a critical piece. And without that piece, maybe everything else wouldn't matter as much. Even the land speed record, all of that. And that little piece is the gratitude piece. Mm-hmm. How you are grateful for your journey and your life, and that's such a powerful place and presence of your heart. And it's also a secret of really bringing a lot of success to our lives, so to speak. And, we really had a rich conversation dropping into a little bit of the physicality, the physical part of an athlete, dropping into the heart a little bit here, and touching into the mind, the mindset. And I just want to take a little bit more time, and I want to go a little deeper into the mindset of a champion, the mindset of doing the impossible or the unthinkable. And let's talk a little bit about the science and engineering of you. In other words, not exactly in the context of the aerodynamics of riding that bike, of engineering the movement, of you getting aligned with the totality of all of it, but to look at it in the kind of what I would say is the science and engineering of your inner dynamic, that inner space within you. And what I'm getting at is, do you listen like intuitively to a place within you that knows that this is where I want to be, that says, yes, be here, no, don't do this. Work with, how does the role of your own intuition, your gut, how does that speak to you as a champion, as a mother, as an everyday human doing what you do?
Oh, very deep on that level. And what's very interesting is, as for anyone who's been around me long enough, they've heard me say, I'm very much of a feeler. I have an innermost sense when it comes to elements of, what people are feeling or what makes me tick, whether I'm on target or not. Can't quite describe why, but I just know that I'm in the zone of where I need to be. And one of those elements is, while I am actually doing the intensity of the land speed record, there is so much going on so quickly. It is actually a quiet space for me. And most people wouldn't understand that. I'm self-proclaimed ADHD, and at any given time, my mind is going in so many different directions, which is a great, beautiful thing, multitasking, accomplishment in everyday world. However, there are a few moments when the mind is so calm, you are just literally so 100% in the moment. Everything else quiets down, and it's a nirvana that I've explained. And the downhill mountain bike racing, the land speed record, many of the different elements of what I do in life are in a way seeking that peace and calm. That comes with the adrenaline junkie side of me. So it's my theory that many adrenaline junkies have ADHD, and it's this spot where everything just comes together, and it's the quietness. And it, like I said, it's so absolutely reversal of what you would think, but it's that peace, quiet, calm, that moment of 100% there, that literally I would say would be the big drive of doing the speed record. And I use an example, not that I've experienced this, but I've heard people talk about it, is when some people have gotten into really horrific car accidents. Mm-hmm. And they talk about the fact that the accident starting, then all of a sudden everything went in slow motion in their mind and how they remembered it. It's just, nice. And so I liken that same experience of what people have either felt or heard about with the land speed record. I'm going 180 some odd miles an hour on a bicycle behind a vehicle in a space with only inches from hitting the bump bar. I mean, inches from my front wheel getting taken out from me for the side of the fairing. But yet it was the faster I went, the more I could see everything that was going on. Everything slowed down. And so that was such a magical space you don't get experienced too many times in life. And so for me, I knew I was chasing that nirvana, as weird as that may sound. And so the athleticism of being a cyclist and all the training I did only got me to be able to experience that mental experience that I saw. And I got to see that in my lower speeds. And in 2016, when I did the women's record, that's again what wanted me to go for the higher record is, oh, I've got this. And it was this draw to that peace and quiet. Again, opposite of what you would think, but that just magical, peaceful moment. And I think that's a big draw of the adrenaline junkie things and why I say yes, because there are scary moments that can come along with that. But everything has a different value and a price in achieving those moments. And for me, this was within my acceptable range to do something many people would never even attempt because I'm achieving that special calm.
Well, thank you for that. And for all you listening out there, that was a beautiful share around a flow state. Mm-hmm. And moving into that inner presence and coming into that, let's say, that inner dynamic of high performance, but it's not just performance. It's a higher dynamic of our own beingness, of, like Denise shared, in a state of peace, in a state of slow motion. And I was always been intrigued by the Navy SEAL model. Slow is smooth and smooth is swift.
Mm-hmm.
You get into a place where everything is just, you're so present. There's no mistakes, and no mistakes means a swift and a successful outcome. And so what a powerful place. And do you find, and this may sound like a silly question, but I think many that are a bit on edge, whatever that edge is, edge of their existence, edge of performance, edge of, standing up on stage, whatever, standing in a leadership position. Do you find to get into that flow state that there's a prerequisite of just feeling a sense of deep trust and safety? I mean, that the safety and the trust, is that kind of a stepping stone into the deeper flow state, intuitive state of what you just described?
Yes, I'm going to try and answer that as best I can, because I'm a feeler, and what I feel when I'm listening to you describing that, I resonated with your example of being on stage, because I've done several keynotes and things of that nature. And there's always that moment you get on stage, and every once in a while, you're just nervous, and other times not. So I'm always looking at, what is that difference? Did I feel something from the audience? What was it here with me? Was it the physical location? Was it the number of people? And really the baseline is an inner confidence. I tend to be a people pleaser by nature. It was just how I'm sort of made up, but it's been one of the biggest issues for me, because that has unfortunately dictated a lot of how I do something in front of others versus just being confident with who I am and where I am. Like I said, we all have our own little things that we're constantly dealing with, the little voices in your head and what have you, or am I this enough, or what are they expecting? Or do I have enough information on this topic and things of that nature? But the biggest thing that's given me the peace and calm of being able to really tap into that flow and tap into the just feeling it and being and giving it my absolute best is knowing I am good enough. And I think that's the self-confidence, not arrogance, self-confidence of coming in and knowing that this is what you're here to be able to do, and you're here to share. And that's what they're here for, is to listen. And why not be able to share that beauty that you do have within yourself? And so I know I'm sort of speaking very generically, but I in my head, it's the example of getting onto stage in front of an audience. And why are some of them just so amazing in the presentation, and some so awkward? And I'm constantly looking at that. And like I said, that baseline is again, my own thoughts about myself, because I am good enough to be there. I have this information they want to hear. I am a very genuine person. I need to get out of my own way of trying to be something I may not be, or trying to be something somebody's expecting me to be. And so I think that's the essence of an athlete, a business person, or anybody in any capacity, is having that inner self-confidence, again, minus the arrogance. It can be there can be a confusion when it comes to that. Because I am a genuine caring person. So I care about others. And I think that comes through in the way in which I present, but I have to be okay with who I am, where I am, and know that I have something to share and be excited about inspiring other people.
Well, absolutely. I mean, what I'm sensing here is that inner trust of who you are. That's our safe space. When we touch in with that, when we know that whatever anybody may think is really not as relevant as much as we may think we care. It's more important. How are we feeling in our own body, mind, and spirit? How are we coming together? And your example of standing on stage most certainly is a good one. I know the feeling. Mm-hmm. But ultimately we're there because we're inspiring, and we're serving in some way to support others in move through their own limiting beliefs. And, as we kind of wind down today, I maybe share with us, like, what's next for you? Like, what's up right now? You're not even, you're probably at the midpoint of life like me. You got another halfway to go. What do you want to do with it?
Oh, well, yeah, I have 3 points that I want to immediately bring up. So I'm 49. I have no fear of sharing my age.
Right.
You mentioned serving. And I love, that's a word that I didn't quite use in my example there. And that is so beautiful of what it is. We are all here serving one another, serving ourselves. And it's that balance. And I love that word. And it ties right into the answer to your question is what is next? Because I was approached by a visually impaired or blind athlete. Last year, she competed in Tokyo for Paralympics for triathlon. And she has decided to switch to bicycling only instead of the swim, bike, and run, and focusing on the velodrome, which is very fast cycling, which I'm more of a fast twitch person. I'm a sprinter by nature. There's people that are endurance athletes. I can do endurance. I'm not competitive in endurance. I'm very good. And my talent is going really fast, not just drafting, but I'm a sprinter. So she reached out to me and asked me to be her pilot. And so that's on the front of a tandem, because if you're blind, you can't ride because you can't see the road in front of you. So with that, they need to have a sighted person to be on the front of a tandem in order to compete on the velodrome. Her goal is the 2024 Paralympics in Paris. And she reached out to me and asked me to be her pilot. And I had to think probably for about a couple months for the obligation and dedication that partnership would take, because it would mean 2.5 years of a yes, not just, oh, let's go train and do a bike race. It's a 2.5 year long journey. And I decided to say yes. And so for me, I feel I am serving her and providing the eyes for her and her journey to the Paralympics. And I think that's just, so that's 2024. So again, the carrot gets put out there of what is next. It inspires me to get back and get back into race shape, because I had allowed myself to sort of relax a little, and now it's back up into race shape. I know I can do it. And it even gives me an extra bonus is the fact that I'm doing it to help another person. And that's just rewarding to not only be the athlete that everyone's looking at, but then also to be the quiet one I may be on the front of the tandem, but when you go to the Paralympics and when you compete at the World Championships and the national, you don't have your name on the front, you have guide. The name is on the jersey of the person who's behind you, the athlete, because they're the athlete for the games. And I heard it just said yesterday or 2 days ago at a training event, we're organic equipment. So you have the physical bicycle equipment, and then the human on the front, the organic equipment.
Well, I love it. You get to be the organic equipment on this one.
Yes.
I look forward to seeing you too in the next Paralympic. That'll be fantastic, and all the best with that. And of course that will bring service and mission to those that seemingly, my God, I'm blind. I couldn't ride around. I couldn't do something. And, to break the boundaries, to really do what people think it's impossible for them to do. And as a living model of that, an organic model of that in your own way, yeah. I think it's great. And, I'd be remiss I don't want to forget this, but how the heck do you run a marathon in the Antarctic? I mean, do you have like crampons or something? Are you like wearing all this gear that's loaded you down? Do you fall into a crevice? I mean, what the heck is that all about? That must be for crazy people.
Yeah. Well, see, crazy is the word that I get described about me, which I'll own it because it's the right type of crazy. But I will challenge you on this is when you say Antarctica, it is your vision of what that Antarctica is looking like that you're portraying. Mm-hmm. Antarctica is actually multiple islands run by different countries. And so I was on the King George Island, which is the northernmost island of Antarctica. Mm-hmm. So it is officially Antarctica, but it had a terra firma. So there was snow, but I did not have to run over the snow and the ice. It was actually on dirt paths and things that nature. So I did that actually for my 40th birthday, because how do I celebrate my 40th? Many people will throw a party and what have you. Instead, on my 40th was supposed to be the actual event of the Antarctic Marathon. It got shifted a couple days. But either way, my 40th birthday was spent doing an Antarctica marathon. And I mentioned my age of 49. And so I am going to be turning 50 next year. And in the same theme, I do plan to do a marathon. Again, don't know how I'm going to really put the marathon training in there because my birthday's in February. So it's sort of off season for the cycling. I am going to do Kilimanjaro marathon and then do an African safari. So I'm going to do a marathon in Africa. But it was, that's sort of a little another example of let's do something crazy. But the Antarctica was actually 25 degrees. So it was freezing, but properly dressed, you run, it's all good. So, and it wasn't on ice or crevasses or anything of that nature. It was quite doable.
Well, I love it. And, I've been enjoying our time immensely together. And I feel your passion for life and all that's possible, and just optimism and gratitude and support of yourself and your family and your business and your community. And of course, that extends out in its own way to a world that is having its own challenges, so to speak. And I had a moment, I'll just share this as we wrap up here. Just before we got on, I went up and was doing some training on the mountain behind my home here in Santa Barbara. And all of a sudden I heard that Tina Turner song, "What Has Love Got to Do with It?" It's only an emotion. We all know that one. And it just kept repeating. I'm going, what is that? I go, wow, I haven't heard that song I don't even remember. I ask you, what does love got to do with it?
Love comes in many forms. Mm-hmm. That'll be my first answer. And we have, love of children, love of a partner, love of things that you're doing. And so for me, love has everything to do with it. I think that's just, love is a representation of a balance with another, and it's another thing or another person. And for me, it's very foundational in my life. I have a loving partner. I have loving relationships with my children. I have loving relationships with my friends and the family and support. My support world, the basis of those relationships is love. And I think that's the foundation of everything. So what does love have to do with it? Everything.
Right on to that. I'm like so with you on that. And thank you for sharing that. I felt the totality of what it has to do with it. And, the world is seemingly like we've been challenged, but in so many ways, and we can kind of get really serious about it all. And we forget the love, we forget the passion, we forget the drive, we forget our potential. And as I traditionally do on my shows, I ask one final question, and I'm going to ask it of you. Do you have a cure for terminal seriousness?
Laughter.
Drop the mic. This is what we know to be true, right?
Yeah.
Right.
You can
Denise-
also be serious and laugh. But
Yeah.
my thing is, a laugh will always solve most anything.
Yes, indeed. Well, Denise Muller, thank you for being here with us today. Thank you for bringing your light, bringing your love, bringing your inner wisdom into the greater dynamics of the human potential, to kind of weaving your journey from as an athlete, physically, emotionally, what you shared with us, the truth of the mindset that does not fail. And when it does, it gets up to succeed. So any failure is always a success. Thank you for being you as a mother, as an entrepreneur. Thank you for coming to share in your wisdom in the world and your service in the world that I hear is emerging. And, as we've talked a little bit about, these are times that are calling all of us to live in our inspiration. These are times that are asking us to not necessarily be guided by what motivates us, because often it's the fear or the hurt or the pain that drives us to make decisions that we long wanted to make to fulfill our heart's greatest desire and greatest truth. And today we had some time with you to share your inspiration, which has brought us all to life. So thank you. Thank you for being here. Bless you. I wish you all the best on your journey, and to be continued, I hope.
Oh, yes.